Season 4 picks up right where Season 3 left off. The Handmaids have saved June and are tending to her wounds as they try to come up with an escape plan. June is losing a lot of blood, so they cauterize the wound, and then they make their way out of Boston. It does get pretty hairy, though, getting out of Gilead. At one point, the truck they're in is stopped, but they're hidden under the floorboards of the truck, so luckily, they're able to get out of there. The truck drops them off, though, and they head to a farm where they're supposed to see a lantern indicating that it's all clear. But they don't see it, and someone needs to go in order to actually make sure that it's safe, and June volunteers, even though she's very injured. When she gets to the farm, she meets up with a guardian named David, and she is able to confirm that it's safe. She gives the signal to the rest of the handmaids that it's all clear, but her injuries have really taken a toll on her, and she collapses. So immediately they rush her into the house, where the woman of the house, and I use that term very loosely, is a teenager named Esther Keyes. And she is thrilled that June is there. She can't wait to work with Mayday. And it takes June nearly 3 weeks to get out of bed, using homemade remedies to deal with the gunshot wounds. But eventually she does make it out. The rest of the handmaids, who are all dressed up as Marthas now, are thrilled to see June walking around. She heads out in the field and meets up with Alma, who is a lookout. While they're safe on the farm, they're not safe. So June is getting the lay of the land. She heads back into the farm where she sees the commander of the house, Commander Keyes. She says hello to him, but he doesn't say a word to her. It's a little odd, but she doesn't think anything of it. When she heads out, that's the first time she's seeing Esther since she arrived on the farm nearly 3 weeks ago. And Esther, who looks all of 15, is puffing on a Virginia Slim, but then loses it when she sees June out and about. And enthusiastic is one way to describe Esther. Psychotic would be another. I mean, when she arrived, she was telling June that she had dreams of her and June killing people. So she can't wait to get started, but June just got out of bed for the first time, doesn't have a plan, and certainly doesn't want to plan anything with a 15-year-old that looks like she should be in calculus class. And when June brings up the fact that a girl her age shouldn't really be dealing with this kind of stuff, she takes offense to it, reminding June that she is the woman of the house. It's a little awkward. Later that day, they have to go slaughter a pig that Janine has become pretty fond of. And June knows that Janine is really fragile, so she goes along with Janine to say her goodbyes to the pig. And as they're walking out, they pass Esther along with the guardians that are going to be actually slaughtering the pig. And the pig is going to be served up for dinner that night. So all of the former handmaids turned Marthas are having a great time, and at the head of the table is Esther. But when the pig gets around to Janine, she says, "No, I'm good," and Esther takes offense to it. Esther uses this opportunity to reassert that she is the woman of the house, forcing Janine to eat the pig. And when it looks like Janine is ready to spit it out, Esther holds a hand over her mouth, not allowing her to. Jean yells at Esther for this and then chases after her, only to find her in the barn holding a knife. And she rips into this girl, telling her not to mess with Janine, but also to show some compassion because they took Janine's eye. They did horrible things to all of them. Show everybody a little respect. But Esther yells at her that the commander couldn't do it. The commander couldn't have sex with her. And poor Esther goes on to tell June her story. That because the commander couldn't have sex with her, he simply couldn't get it up. He basically allowed any guy that wanted to have sex with her free reign. She was raped repeatedly. Anytime a guy wanted to get laid, they basically headed to the Keyes house. Guardians, commanders, you name it. And suddenly, June goes from combatant to a mother figure with this girl. Because this girl's a few years older than Hannah. June reminds Esther that none of what happened was her fault. She's able to get the knife away from her and console her. As soon as she leaves that barn, though, she goes running to find Alma, yelling at her that an abused little girl was the only person protecting them. Alma, though, had no idea that that was her, quote, job, shooting back, "I'm sorry, I was busy dragging you through Massachusetts trying to save your life. My bad." When Alma brings up the F word, freedom, June says, "We're not free." To which Alma replies, "Well, maybe this is as free as we're ever going to get." June wants to be really mad, but when she goes into a barn, she realizes that everybody else is happier on the farm. Maybe what Alma said was correct, because they're all singing, laughing, dancing, but June can't exactly twerk at the moment because of her injuries, so she heads back into the household. And on the table, she sees a knife, and she picks it up, and then the commander walks in. And because June knows what the commander did to this poor girl, June really wants to use that knife. But this is how far gone Commander Keyes is. He has no idea who June is. He has no idea that he's met June. He has no idea what her name is. And even worse, he has no idea who Esther is, asking June what is her name. But when Commander Keyes admits that he is scared of Esther, June gets really close to him and says, "You should be." But then all of a sudden, Guardian David walks in and says, June, we need you outside. And that's because they found a quote-unquote trespasser. It was another Guardian that Esther had caught and tied up. And the handmaids turned Marthas are ready to wail on this guy, but they're all looking at June for confirmation on what to do. Esther tells June, I can have him arrested on behalf of my husband. And June asks, well, do we know who he is? And Esther knows exactly who he is because he's one of the guys that raped her. And when June finds that out, it changes everything. But June walks away from a moment trying to compose her thoughts, and that's when the guy tries to make a break for it. Although he doesn't get far, he gets beaten up pretty good, and June gives the order to put him in the barn. The handmaids tie him up, and as June and Alma are just staring at him, Alma makes the point that he saw everybody, so they have to do something about it. But that was never not an option for June. As soon as she found out this guy was one of the people that raped Esther, something was going to be done. Because that comment that Alma made goes in one ear and out the other. And June just starts saying that Esther's family sent her to this farm to be raped. Because it's something that June can't believe actually happened. So June walks up to this guy and says, you're a traitor to America and you raped a child. And the punishment of that is death. But when she turns around, there's Esther. So she walks up to her, gives her the knife, and whispers in her ear, make me proud. But she doesn't stay to watch Esther Scissorhands carve this guy up. She walks out, goes to her room, and lays down. And a short time later, Esther shows up, covered in blood, climbs in the bed, puts her arm around June, and says, I love you. And June replies, I love you too, Banana, which is the nickname that she always called Hannah. Now, to give you an update on what's going on with the Waterfords, well, they had a busy day planned, but that all went by the wayside when a plane showed up with 86 kids on it. So the hearing that Commander Waterford had and the lawyer meeting that Serena had have been put on hold. Commander Waterford makes the point that Canada should send the kids back to their homes, and Mark does his best to let Commander Waterford know that the kids are heading back to their homes, their actual parents. They also find out through this meeting that while it's not confirmed, Canada is pretty sure that this was all run by a handmaid, their handmaid. And when the Waterfords find out about this, they know what's going to happen to June if she's caught. Another person we get an update on is Aunt Lydia. Aunt Lydia was interrogated by the eyes ever since the kids went missing. The council is basically blaming Lydia because this was all orchestrated through handmaids, and that's her responsibility. But because of her condition, they're not going to punish her anymore. Aunt Lydia does make mention, though, that it's been 19 days and they haven't been able to find June. And every day that she's missing is another day where she's planning something against Gilead. So it's pretty clear that Aunt Lydia wants revenge. And then finally, with Commander Lawrence, he's sitting in his cell when Nick walks in and lets him know that his trial had happened and it didn't go well for Commander Lawrence. Nick is really just there to thank him for the service to the country. Right before he leaves, Commander Lawrence asks him how the invasion of Canada is going. And Nick hasn't gotten any plans to this point, but Commander Lawrence says, well, they're going to invade. Do you really think that's a good idea? I mean, millions of people are going to die by that decision. Lawrence tells Nick that this is a diplomatic opportunity. Because if Gilead can let the kids go as a sign of good faith, it can open up trade routes, a ceasefire at the border. You might even be able to kickstart the UN. Nick, though, isn't responding, so Commander Lawrence tries to tug at the heartstrings, saying that this is June's legacy. Although that doesn't seem to work either. But the next day, when the Guardians show up for Commander Lawrence, and he's thinking he's going to be executed, it's not an electric chair that's in front of him, it's a barber's chair. Because Nick had taken his words to heart and gone back to the council and was able to convince them to make Commander Lawrence in as a consultant. So he's got the 4 details laid out on what to do with Canada. Lawrence's life is saved, and he's back. Thanks for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to this channel. Like the video if you liked it. Hit thumbs down if you don't. Be nice in the comments section. Nasty comments hurt my feelings. I work hard on these. If I make a mistake, it happens. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen, it'll be up soon. Sharing is caring. Put it on your MySpace page or your away message. And check out my podcast, Scene Invaders, wherever you listen to podcasts.